Welcome back to Cat's Coloring. This is part 2 to finish up the first prompt for, if you haven't seen the other one, I'm working on the prompt book Draw Your Own Adventure by Chloe Rose. And we're on the first prompt, which is coloring and labeling this bookcase that you wandered into. In the last video, I was talking about the different book series that I've read that I started reading due to movies that came out because I didn't know that they existed until the movie came out. There's one book that, sorry, had to get a pencil sharpener. There's one movie that came out that took me a long time to finally break down to read the book, which was Player One, the one about the virtual reality world where everybody pretty much lived in their VR headset world. And I didn't read any reviews or anything like that. I just figured with how complex the movie was that there was probably a lot of, it was liberally taken from the book. And oh boy, was I right. I mean, sorry. Um, the main character lived with his aunt. Um, he had friends online. There was the competition with that the creator had put out there for after his death. But where the like once the movie started taking off, it almost seemed like it took them a couple of weeks to get through the rest of the prompts. And then he met the love interest in real life well before they found everything. Yada yada yada. But in the book, it was years in between finding each key for each part of the competition. He doesn't meet the love interest until the very last page. Like they don't meet in real life until like the very last page or last chapter anyway of the book. So it was kind of nice that they had scenes in the movie where he met the love interest before, like the very end. Um, and there were some controversial topics. Or not controversial, but uh, topics about how people escape into uh, virtual world to um, feel seen, like they isolate themselves in the virtual world, and that I definitely have to say, if I wasn't listening to it on audiobook, I probably would not have made it through the book. I mean, it was a good book. It was a decent read, but it wasn't my cup of tea per se. But I made it through because I had seen the movie, and I really wanted to know the different. I wanted to pick out the differences. But reading, I probably would have just. I'm impatient, so I probably would have just read to the very like I would have read probably the first couple of chapters, realized that there was huge differences, maybe pulled it up. I maybe even pulled it up on like a digital format if I hadn't already had it on digital, and like looked up keywords to read those parts and then read the end. So in this case, it was good that I had the audio where I was uh, in my head doing audio is like it makes me read every or listen to everything instead of skipping around. And so it was definitely an interesting read. And then the other book I ended up listening to was if you knew about the Channing Tatum movie that he made years ago, based off of a true story of a lady that was in a car wreck and she lost 7 years of her memories. So she ended up forgetting who her husband was, and so like how the accident was different, but it's still the same accident that took the wife's memories was the same in the movie, but it was their relationship, the couple from the book was very religious based. So they took it from that point of view. Well, sorry, I can't say that because the husband wrote the book as kind of like this is what our life was, as a record on the off chance the wife ended up like losing her memories again, I guess. So he can, show her and like this is our lives while we were trying to, get back to each other, which I thought was really sweet and caring. And I was just like the thought. I mean, it's once again, it's another one of those moments where you're like your whole life can change in the blink of an eye because the husband in real life, the if I remember correctly from the book, it's been many years since I read the book. They were going home for Thanksgiving, and I believe there's been interviews around when the movie came out. But anyway, the husband and wife were going to family's house for Thanksgiving. The husband had just gotten off a really long shift, so the wife said that she would drive, and it was like a bad fog. They were visually impaired, so they didn't see the semi in front of them with like a flatbed semi in front of them. And oh, I'm so sorry. And so the flatbed went and ended up going through the car. So if the husband had been driving, he would have died on scene. But because the wife was shorter and he was like, and luckily he was like, since he was tired, he ended up sleeping in the car. So he ended up surviving with just scrapes and bumps and bruises. And then the wife got, clocked in the head. And so, she woke up thinking that she was back in college. Yeah, I think it was college. But she was really big on keeping, unlike the movie, she was the actual lady was big on keeping journals and putting all her thoughts down in the journal. And so instead of leaving her husband and going back to her family, she stayed with her husband because she was really big on like, okay, I may not remember marrying this man, but this is my handwriting, these are my words, and it says that this is my husband. So she ended up staying with them, and after a lot of counseling and a lot of soul searching, they got back and they knew normal. I'm not going to give away everything, but it was a really sweet and heartwarming tale for this couple. And like I said, it's once again just how one little thing different could have been completely different for the two of them. Or she had been like just a tad taller or whatnot. And then another book I ended up reading before the movie came out. I didn't even realize the book was coming out for it. I was in a vampire phase because I think I found this one around the time I was into Twilight. The Abraham Lincoln the Vampire Killer, I believe is what the book was called. It was definitely a book that I think I would have picked it up, read the first like 5 chapters, and then I probably would have put it down. Nothing against the author, just not my cup of tea to read. But the narrator also helped. The narrator was really good for the book, so it made it very enjoyable to listen to. I'm wondering if there's ever been a book series where you started like a series of books, not just one book, not two books, like a whole series of books. I mean, I know some series are only 3 or 4 books, but that's what I'm talking about. Something like that. Nothing that's just like, okay, here's the book, and then maybe like a conclusion book where you get so far into it, then you're just like, I am so done. So you don't like the way that the author is taking the book. You don't like how the characters are being developed. That started happening to me with a YA book series that dealt with um a vampire kid. Like he, his parents weren't vampires, but he was. I can't remember the whole backstory as far as the family because it irritated it. By the end of the book series, I was actually done with the book. Realistically, if they had kept 2 characters in a relationship, I was done because it was like he was being trained to not um drink human blood. He was drinking from bags, and then he ended up meeting like a vampire teacher. Now his parent, he had a family member that was taking care of him that was vampire, but they were more of like a they drank from like blood bags. They didn't drink off of humans. It's not like they killed humans. It just was frowned upon. And so he ends up meeting this vampire um, mentor that was a male, and the mentor convinced him to start drinking off of humans. And so he ends up creating this bond with this female that wasn't even really a friend. I wouldn't say she was like a school outcast, but it wasn't like one of his friends that he was like, hey, this is the things going on, you want to help me out. No, it's just somebody he just became friends with solely to drink from her. And I felt like it was a very kind of toxic relationship because of the fact that they were becoming to have feelings for each other because of this bond of the blood drinking. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I can't. And these was YA, so we're talking about the book series started when I think the kid was like 6th or 7th grade, and then it ended. Maybe it was 8th grade because I think it was only 5 books, but it took him through his senior year of high school, I believe. Like I said, it's been years since I read it, and been slowly trying to forget about it, even though it's not been able to really forget it. Pretty much it was like a coming of age story, blah 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 blah. And I was like, it didn't really get better, but I was like, I'm already this many books in. Plus it was through the library, so it's not like I actually paid for the books. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna give it a shot. he ends up breaking it off with the person that he was feeding off of. He's like, I'm gonna go back to blood bags because I think he was like mentally becoming unstable from drinking human blood because he didn't know how to like handle it. Like I said, I don't remember. And then by the very end of the series, he ends up turning the girl into a vampire, and then they end up together, like in the last like the last chapter. And I literally was like, that was the book series that made me feel like I wanted all those hours. Luckily, I was working. I had a job where I could listen to something while I was working, so it wasn't like I was just sitting there doing nothing while listening to this book. I was working, so it's not like I can really say I want those hours back in my life. But it was definitely one of those books where you just want to be like, what did I just listen to? This was annoying. And then I have book series that I've listened to too many times to count. And there are ones that I've found in the last year or two. It's mostly from an author, Alice Winters. She does a lot of romance, but her characters are just amazing. They're hilarious. Like if you like a little bit of action, a little bit of drama, some romance, she's amazing. She has a vampire series. She has a hitman turned private eye series. She has a series where one character is a police officer and the other character can see ghosts. She has a whole bunch of other series, but those are the ones that I can listen to over and over and over again and not get bored. And I literally, like, when I find out that she's coming out with a new book, I'm just like, come on. I understand that she has like all these ideas, and so it's like I try not to be that person that's hounding her, like, hey, when you can bring out the next book. But at the same time, I'm like, I get done with a book and I'm just like, I need the next one. I need it. So I get excited when a new book is announced. Because I know I mentioned a book series on my last video that I love the paper copy, but then, well, the narrators, she uses multiple different narrators for different, not for the same book series, like each different book series have like different narrator, could have a different narrator, but they're all from her, and the narrators that she uses are amazing voicing these characters. So, oh my lord. I know this is, I'm hoping what I'm talking about isn't boring you, because I know just watching me color in a bookcase and books can be kind of boring, but I do appreciate the company. Or hopefully I'm company for you while you're working on something of your own, or you're, using me as background noise while you're doing something else, and that's fine. The next time I have one of these kind of pages, I might try to do like a paint wash to, take care of because you can thin out paint. Depending on the paint, you can do more of like kind of like well, I mean, I'm sure if you've watched any other art YouTuber that does like murals, or I mean, you may know somebody that paints like on murals or canvases, that they say to do um like a wash underneath to paint on top of. And part of me is wondering if that wasn't a better idea to, do to get the bookcases started, so I didn't have to do 2 layers of brown and then where all these little whites coming through. I kind of like them because it kind of makes it look like the bookcase has been, used and abused from, people putting books on there and taking the books off. It's a well-loved bookcase. But if I had put down like a wash, then that color would have popped through instead of the white. Because that's what I'm kind of doing with this blue pencil. It's not like I want all these books to be blue, but I figured I'd do a kind of like a base color to blend out any over the line. It's like I didn't really fail art with not coloring inside the lines, but when you're trying to be unedited, but at the same time you don't want to keep coloring the same area, you sometimes go a little over the line to get a base color done. And that's kind of the reason why I said in the last video that this one being my first one is the reason why I'm doing 2 separate videos, but for the most part, I'm only going to do, I'll start it. Hopefully I can get most of it done, and then I'll finish it off camera, so I'm not, because on the off chance you didn't see it before, that's how big the book is. So originally I was thinking of, and I'm only posting these like every other week. I have another project that I've talked about that I'll be doing on the other week. And that one will be just one video because hopefully I can get most of that done. As long as I plan well in advance, I can get most of that video done in one setting, hopefully. And then I'm debating on at least doing, because of the way the pages are, I'm hoping to at least do one flip of the pages on the week that I'm doing the book. Because I feel like it would take me forever elsewise. But right now, with where my recording setup is, it's not optimal for me to just chug out recording after recording. Whew. I also still wanted to kind of give the Red Book prominence. That's the other reason why I was kind of keeping the books kind of like an semi-opposite color to it. Well, since I have one layer of color pencil, let me see what happens. Nope. See, that's her. It bled through. And that's why I won't be using alcohol markers in this book. I was debating on putting book titles on the books, but I kind of like the idea of just the colored books and then leaving the one named Sketch and the one called Sketchbook alone and making that the prominent focal piece. But I always feel like a sketchbook needs to be nice and colorful. If you make it to this far, I appreciate it. This one's probably gonna be a little bit longer because I at least I want to finish the coloring for you. But if you make this far, like, what colors would you choose for books? Like, if there was titles to put on books, what kind of titles would you put on them? Ah. Don't need my. I have two puppies that lay at my feet, and one, even though she's 3 now, she still likes the taste of wood. So if I'm not careful, I'll end up with a missing coloring pencil and wood splinters everywhere. Sorry, hands starting to cramp up a little bit. That was unplanned, but oh well. I've been trying to. Well, no, I have it a couple spots where I have the color on top of each other. Not trying to, but that's what happens. There we do. You do this on the littler book so it's not overshadowing the red book, which I want to be the add a little pop of brightness because every bookcase needs a little pop of color. I'm still in that learning process of figuring out when it's too much versus when it's not enough. It's like I only want to try to highlight certain books, but I'm also trying, like I said, not trying to overshadow this one. But at the same time, some of these books are just screaming that they need a little character. Okay, we've entered this bookstore. Saw this bookcase of unfinished sketchbooks. We found a sketchbook that this sketchbook is screaming out to us. We're going to grab it and start this journey. Darn. Almost put 24 instead of 25. That way it shows when I started and when I finish it. So, thank you for joining me on the start of this journey. Subscribe if you want to come along on this journey with me. I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, have a great night and goodbye.